Hello, and welcome to A Journeyman's Travels. My name is Daniel Scheifler. Welcome. We've been talking about this season first principles, that is, atomic units for reasoning about leadership. And this episode follows on the heels of an episode on the focus that leadership is about how we spend our time. And in that episode, we discussed and kind of found out that leadership, since it is predicated first on a change in our focus, that it's not about us, the leader, but about the people we're leading, that it must also change how we spend our time. Which then leads us to today's episode, that leadership is about systems, because it's not just about doing the right thing once, but it's rather about consistency. There's a quote I like by James Clear here, that we don't rise to the level of our goals, rather, we fall to the level of our systems. This is why we talked about leadership being about how we spent our time and intentionally categorizing it. Succeeding today is important, but so is succeeding into the future. What got you to this point as an individual contributor and promoting now into leadership will not get you further as a leader. You must relearn and rebuild new systems and new practices and processes to get your work done. If all it took was a high and lofty goal, we would all be multi-millionaires with bodybuilder bodies. And given the current state of my spare tire, I can attest that that's not the case. We have to be intentional in building the systems again, because leadership is not just a promotion. It's a full-blown career change. Something has changed about what you need to do, which is why we talked about how you're spending your time, and you need to evaluate that. So now let's talk about how you make that consistent, how you bring it up from an individual decision every single time and create rules that help you to do it consistently. Now, one of the aspects we need to talk about here is that organizations, right, those things we work for, are made of people. They can only grow and change as people do. And so the critical path for a leader to be able to modify his organization, to help them improve and to get to a better state, is when a leader codifies their understanding into a process that others could follow, into steps that they could go and could repeat, accompanied with the understanding of when to apply the process. Right? This is the whole coaching and training portion of leadership, teaching your team how to do what you learned how to do. This is codifying knowledge. And as we mentioned, where leadership is not about you, we are immediately talking about your team again, right? All of a sudden, we're talking about systems, but it's not systems for you. Only it is. Not only do we have to talk about how you spend your time, that is, what actions are you specifically taking, in what order, under what circumstances, but also developing that for your team. Now, here's a critical element. Because leadership is not about you, success is not in you being able to do the action, or even in you just writing it down, but in your team being able to act on that guidance. They have to see what you see and to understand what you understand, and then take the action like you used to. And of course, this is where the gaps come in. They'll probably come back to you with questions, right? The moment someone tries to follow instructions, they'll immediately think of something you never thought of. It's quite frustrating, really, on occasion, but this is how that process gets better, right? For somewhat of a rote process, easy. We could totally write up steps for that. How do you assemble an IKEA? Take pictures and point, right? That's all it is. It's diagrams with arrows. But what about something more nuanced? Something like problem solving or identifying the right problem to solve with software. Or heck, even writing up the components and designing that. How do you teach that to someone? Sure, there are software design patterns you could point them to, and fundamentally, it kind of boils down to do and review, right? Have them try. Give them feedback on what didn't go well in their trial. Unless we know it so deeply that we can begin to articulate these things. Which, of course, even I, having practiced software development for many years now, even I can't really do that to teach a junior into a senior in a weekend or even a paper. It takes time, it takes practice, because we have to help them gather the body of knowledge we personally have developed. Certainly we can expedite it with some scaffolding, but it takes spaced repetition and retrieval practice. You have to try it again later when I'm not there to coach you. You have to get it wrong, get feedback, and improve. And so that means that as a leader, we're going to be stuck for the long term in reviewing the actions and decisions of others until we can help them build up the same nuanced understanding of what is important as we have. But then that leads us to the question, okay, so that's all well and good. During the first phase as a leader, you're totally going to have to coach your team and be with them deeply and honestly give them space to make the mistakes and make decisions. But what about when you want to go on vacation? Now, before we get into that nonsense, yes, as a leader, you should take vacation. Not just because it's a good idea, and no, don't give me that nonsense of the boss never gets a vacation. If you're in that case, no one under you is going to take a vacation either, because they will follow your lead. If you want your team to be healthy, you have to demonstrate healthy practices too. So, plan on vacation. Now, as part of planning on vacation, let's think about what would be required for you not to be the block on your team while you're on vacation, right? Like, do you really want to log in every 2 hours to give feedback on pull requests? Do you want to be on call at every hour of the day in case something goes kaboom? I don't either. Now, since leadership is about them and how we spend our time, what can we do to allow us to effectively spend our time even when it's on vacation and not be dragged into helping them solve their problems? And not be dragged into a room when anything that comes up wasn't covered by the written procedure. Here, I'll recommend we turn to delegation. Now, delegation really is kind of an art form. There's no hard and fast rule, though there are some principles you can follow to create a lovely work. And I say art here because there's a nuance in applying it effectively. You don't just delegate laundry duty to my 3-year-old. I mean, they can't do it. They're not even tall enough to reach the machine. But how much could I delegate to, say, my 6-year-old, right? And then, of course, one thing that you're never supposed to do as a parent is compare your children. Only that's exactly what you have to do. And ask, could my 3-year-old, right now, handle the same number of chores as my 6-year-old could when they were 3? The answer is no. And that's okay. But we have to understand the person we are assigning things to, their capabilities, their background, their temperament and outlook on life. My 3-year-old doesn't see the world like my 6-year-old does. And that's okay. You have to match the request to the person. And you have to effectively communicate your goals, the boundaries, and the freedoms without constraining that person too much. How will they understand your statement of, you can do this, but not that? You must learn to communicate to that person so that they can have what they need. Effective delegation gets talked about all over the place, but one of the most insightful discussions that I've come across comes from the book of Leadership Strategies and Tactics by Jocko Willink. And there are 3 big parts to effective delegation in that book. Number 1, the goal. What is the operation supposed to achieve? What should all of a person's actions, who's being delegated to, be aimed at achieving? Right? I don't care what you do. This is what I need you to get done. Right? Don't delegate a solution. Follow these steps. Delegate a goal. Achieve this. Figure it out. Because when it comes to one of those things that's not covered by the written procedure, the thing that's most important is what is the goal at the end. Now, someone could take a scorched earth approach. Sure, you want me to get over there? I'm gonna burn everything between me and there, killing all of our bridges, making certain no one wants to partner us with us ever again, and I still achieve the goal. No. So we have boundaries, which is the second element, and it's also critically important. Where is that line in the sand? Where are the fences? How far can they go? Because if you don't tell them, don't burn bridges with these people, if this person asks you for something, the answer is yes. Like, if you don't inform them of these things, they're all but guaranteed to miss while trying to hit the goal, right? Because the boundaries are part of meeting the goal, part of meeting it the way we need to. What boundaries do you expect them to see while trying to achieve the goal, right? Anticipate what might happen. Not all of it. But like if they had to get to the point of, can I get approval for $100 to buy this person a meal to make up for a failed deployment? Like, do you really need them calling you while on vacation for that? Or are you okay with them just, go take care of the client. Make certain they know we care. Take a mea culpa. Don't say these things, but you can totally buy them a dinner. Do the same thing for our team, right? And I have been in situations where that was the expressed instruction to me by my leader. Go and have the team set up for this. offer to buy them dinner if they do. And for anyone who is there, go ahead and buy them dinner, right? We will expense it. Okay, cool. I can totally do that. Now, that kind of also balances here on this idea that you also need to define the freedoms. If you're going to define the boundaries, you also need to go ahead and take on the onus of explaining what kind of latitude you are delegating to the person, right? If we are expecting them to take on responsibility for something new, we must also give them authority to do something new. So what kind of latitudes do they have? What resources can they use? Can they expense that $100 dinner? Where the 100 is the boundary, the ability to expense the dinner is the freedom. How long do they have to get this all done? Like, figure this out, get it done. Goal, 2 weeks. But anywhere in that 2 weeks, I'm going to trust you and I'm not going to ask for an update. Cool. What kind of tools are at their disposal to use? And could they be creative in it? Are you giving them just a $100 budget to do what they think is right? Or are you telling them only use it for dinner? I've been in the situation for both where the express thing was buy food only. Okay, I can do that. And then I've also been in the situation which is, here is $100, go find some clever way to leverage it. Okay, I bought books for people that time because that was the best way to make the impact and to care for the people under my care. But it was freedom. Here's the resource, $100. There aren't boundaries on it except with this goal in mind. Okay. But did you hear all of this is kind of predicated on the same underpinning? You have to trust the person you're about to delegate to, right? If you don't trust them, don't hand it off. Because if you can't trust them to try and pursue the goal, if you cannot trust them to honor the boundaries you have there is a problem. Don't go skipping any of these. Trust, goal, boundaries, or freedoms. If you skip the boundary of the goal, that has certain obvious questions. Skipping the freedoms would be akin to assigning responsibility to someone without giving them also the authority to change it, right? Keep this brand new crystal base safe, but you are absolutely not allowed to move it from hanging over the ledge. It has to stay that 1 inch precariously hanging off. Good luck! Also, you can't catch it with a pillow. Don't accept that assignment ever, by the way. That's a terrible idea. It will not lead to your advancement. It will lead to lots of pain and suffering. And with all of this, balance it with the trust of the person. If you cannot trust the person you're delegating to, if you do not understand them well enough, it's better to hold on to it until you can. But don't you dare sit on it either. Leadership is about your team. And it is about how you spend your time. And any time you spend doing something you could have or should have delegated is likely reactionary time because you have not been proactive to figure out how to be ahead of the problem. You have not written down what the goal is, boundaries, the freedoms, and you've not taken the time to communicate to your team, which is where the act of leadership is. And so, we talk about these things, these delegations, these habits, these procedures that we want to write up and communicate to our team as systems. We don't rise to the level of our grand and most wonderful and cherished goals. We fall to the effectiveness of our systems. Make certain, as a leader, you're intentionally building the systems you're going to use, and to arm your team to act when you're not in the room, so that you can demonstrate what good self-care looks like, and you can work on the most valuable contributions that only you can make by not spending your time reacting to the challenges in Q1. As always, thank you for joining me on this, A Journeyman's Travels. And travelers, hope to see you again. Ciao.